Portugal. In the year 1472, King Afonso V of Portugal, the African conqueror king, has reclaimed his lands from the rule of the Moors who had ruled over them for hundreds of years. King Afonso sought the audience of the legendary Prester John, a Christian patriarch, and king who was popular in European chronicles and tradition from the 12th through the 17th centuries. He was said to rule over a Nestorian, Church of the East, Christian nation lost amid the Islamic caliphates and pagan lands of the Orient. A few years before, in the year 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued the papal bull Dum Diversas, which granted King Afonso V the right to reduce Saracens, pagans and any other unbelievers to hereditary slavery. This was reaffirmed and extended in the Romanus Pontifex Bull of 1455, also by Nicholas V. These papal bulls came to be seen by some as a justification for the subsequent era of slave trade and European colonialism. In the year 1472, a Portuguese sailor and navigator, Rui de Sequeira, is sent on a mission by King Afonso to find the kingdom of mythic Prester John with a view to understanding how to eliminate the threat of invasion by the Moors so that their kingdom was never to be invaded again by the Africans. He sent back information of an inland kingdom that should be targeted on future missions.
Benin, West Africa, in the year of 1480. King Olowa of the inland African kingdom of Benin fears an assassination attempt by his courtiers, so he sends his son and heir Prince Genoan to Amato, by the coast of West Africa, with all the vestiges of his empire and 71st sons of chieftains to establish a principality. He is given 70 wives by the ruler or priest king of the Ijuwini clan, Periojirajoka. Prince Genoan marries Princess Deruma of the Ijuwini clan and they become rulers of the Itsekri people. King Olowa dies shortly after their marriage and the Prince Genoan is now the rightful heir to the Benin throne. Following many military victories against neighboring kingdoms, he expands his empire to become the strongest force in the region. His nation's wealth grows through the seized land and captives of his vanquished enemies. He won over 200 battles and earned the title Ozoluwa the Conqueror. This is the story I would like to tell through the eyes of Queen Idia, also referred to as Princess Deruma. The stories of betrayal and politicking can be narrated as the documentary evolves. The era of King Isige I, aka the real Black Panther, son of King Ozoluwa and Princess Deruma. King Isige's reign was forged by his mother Queen Idia. Queen Idia was a brilliant strategist and warrior queen. She was instrumental in the assertion of her son Isige I to the Benin throne. By securing his reign she also saved her life, as it was previously the case that if a Benin king dies, his wife is buried with him. As head wife of King Ozoluwa, her life was in danger with his passing. One of the first battle that the new King Isige had to face was with his courtiers or palace chiefs called the Uzama. The Uzama wielded a lot of power. They made sure that their ancient customs were followed as a means of controlling palace politics. Queen Idia posed a threat to their politics of control in the Benin palace. Queen Idia was from the Edo clan and she was also very formidable in wielding the powers vested in her from her community. Her marriage to the powerful King Ozoluwa produced a son and heir to the Benin throne, and she aimed to use this opportunity as mother to a king to change the kingdom and customs forever in her favor. Very early in her marriage, Queen Idia had to fight for her son's right to the throne. Another son with the support of the Uzama was also claiming the right to be heir to the throne. But their attempts failed. Queen Idia fought off all attempts to eliminate her and her legacy. The arrival of the Portuguese helped her and her clan to cement her legacy as a powerful force in the region. Queen Idia cleverly bought into the proposal of the Portuguese by converting her son Isagi to Christianity in order to acquire the arms and firepower needed to win the battles ahead of her. Queen Idia and her people negotiated a working partnership with the visiting Portuguese envoys under Alfonso de Aveiro. Queen Idia and her people responded to the invitation of King Manuel of Portugal by sending the Oanokun, their chief priest. The Oanokun was equivalent to the status of a pope. He was highly intelligent and invested with the history of their people and customs. The Oanokun was welcomed with great pomp and ceremony by the court of King Manuel in the year 1510. He spent 3 years learning the ways of the Portuguese before returning to Benin. The Oanokun fulfilled his mission by securing with the Portuguese the trade in firearms for the conversion to Christianity of his people, starting with King Isagi I. By securing the trade in firearms for conversion to Christianity, Queen Idia and her people understood that they would be playing a very dangerous game with the Portuguese and the Usamar. The partnership agreement signaled the defeat of the Usamar and the consolidation of power for Queen Idia and her son King Isagi. The Oanokun had managed to convince the Portuguese that their enemy's enemy is their enemy too. The Ida War in the year 1515 was a turning point for Queen Idia and her people. This was the first time firepower was used by the Benin armies to a successful end. The Usamar and their puppeteer were no match for Queen Idia and her people with firearms, and their armies were swiftly decimated in battle. In a desperate effort to save their influence, the Usamar had tried to partner up with the Mohammedan population upriver in order to bolster their forces. This effort was seized upon by the Portuguese as a threat. The Mohammedan population were part of the Moors culture that had ruled over the Portuguese for hundreds of years, and they were to be defeated at all costs. The Portuguese envoy Alfonso de Aveiro reported the threat of the Mohammedan population upriver to King Manuel. The court of King Manuel of Portugal were certain that the mythical Prester John was on the side of Queen Idia and her people. They used all their influence to support Queen Idia and her people to gain victory in the Ida Wars. Queen Idia and her people prevailed over the Usamar, and a new era of trade and prosperity begun with the Portuguese. The war had caused huge turmoil in the Niger Delta region, displacing many communities. With the large numbers of war captives, King Isagi was faced with difficult decisions on their future. It was not the custom of King Isagi and his people to trade in human slavery. It was forbidden. The Usamar was a depleted force, and their ties with the Mohammedan population meant that they still had some vested influence in the region. They began to understand the politics of the Portuguese, and in particular Pope Nicholas V's papal bull Dum Diversas, which granted King Afonso V and subsequent Christian kings the right to reduce Saracens, pagans and any other unbelievers to hereditary slavery. A new era of politics began to take hold in the region,